You're listening to The Breakfast Show on Faith FM with Skafy, Daniel, and Sandy. Good morning to both of you. And we are going to talk about a story of microfinance. Dan is going to explain to us what it is and why is he interested in that subject. But first, we are going to get a quiz question. So producer Sandy, well, it is quiz question number 1.
Quiz question number 3 for the morning.
Yeah, number 3 for the morning, number 1 for this block.
This hour, yes. When referring to evil teachings like that of Hymenaeus and Philetus, Paul said it spreads like what? When referring to evil teachings like that of Hymenaeus and Philetus, Paul said it spreads like what? And our listeners can go to 2 Timothy 2:17.
I think it's one of these, the two here, but I can't really make my mind. Is it?
Okay, so that's a no for Dan, whereas Skafy, your second answer is correct.
Okay.
Yes. So when referring to evil teachings like that of Hymenaeus and Philetus, Paul said it spreads like what? 2 Timothy 2:17. Love to hear from our listeners.
Strong word.
0491 064 669. Tell us what you think the answer is.
Interesting.
Well, thank you very much, producer Sandy.
No problem.
And Daniel, I want to hear more about microfinance. You know what? When I was very young, one of my favorite books that I read, and the book that encouraged me to actually go and study economics, was a book called Lender to the Poor or Banker to the Poor. And it was the story of Muhammad Yunus. He was the head of a bank called the Grameen Bank. Yes.
Yeah.
And I was so touched by the difference that he was making just by, giving like $100 loans to women so that they could escape poverty. It's like, wow, it only takes like $100 to take someone out of poverty.
Yeah.
And to me, I remember that I was like, wow, this is amazing. And that was in Bangladesh.
There's a reason why it's to women and not men. Did you know that?
Yeah, well, look, I want to hear what you think, but what they say is that women tend to be more responsible with their finances.
Yes, they're more likely to repay or to use it and also repay
and to put it to use for something productive versus just like gambling or drinking or something like that.
Us blokes, there's still hope for us though. So microfinance, yes, it is small loans, and often it's to people with no credit history, no bank history, often no papers, no traditional means of getting finance, no steady income. Yeah. And it is small, like it's, as you said, $100. That's the typical size of a microfinance loan that we're talking about. So the reason that I'm sharing this today is because we as a family have just finished reading a book about a pioneer in microfinance, a Christian entrepreneur by the name of David Bussow, and he was really one of the probably maybe the first more big contributor to making microfinance a thing.
Isn't he
in the Christian
an Australian guy?
New Zealander, but moved across to Australia when he was younger, and I think he still lives in Sydney.
Sydney?
He's still alive.
I'm wondering if I met him actually once.
Possible.
I didn't know that there's a whole book about him. That's so cool.
But there's more than one book about him.
Wow, that's amazing.
So this takes us through his whole life story, and how he found God. His upbringing was in a family where his mother rejected him actually, and then sent him to a boarding school and didn't tell him what was going on, just left him there and his brother, and then when things got a bit better for her circumstances, she tried to get the boys back home, and they were like, no, we're not going home. We've got better life here in the boarding school where we are. Anyway, so this is the whole life story of this guy. That's not really to do with the microfinance theme, but it's interesting to see how from that pretty messed up upbringing he became a Christian. He became quite an effective entrepreneur. Like he would start businesses and sell them repeatedly, and as they got better and better, he would, and busier for him, and take him away from his family. He was like, it's time to do something else, and so he'd sell it and go do something else completely different.
That's really cool.
And so this mindset of taking something small and making it bigger through investing in effort and using the principles of capitalism, but for a purpose. So he called himself I think a social capitalist or something like that, where he really used the principles of market economies and investment to help build wealth for blessing people and for bringing people out of poverty. So he went to Indonesia and really helped establish microfinance as a way of bringing people out of poverty first in Bali, and then as tragedy struck in Indonesia with first the Bali bombings and then the Banda Aceh earthquake and tsunami. He really made a massive difference through using his entrepreneurial skills to not just give aid as donations, but to help the local people see business opportunities, maybe inject a bit of finance, hence microfinance, and really be able to use their own skills and ingenuity to invest and build sustainable wealth.
Look, I'll talk to you. I'll tell you a conversation that I had with, David, that I recall from back then, and he was a very deeply Christian man, and I think wasn't he a Seventh-day Adventist as well?
No.
Okay, yeah. But I think I'm remembering. I do not remember if I had the conversation with him. Oh, I think okay. Now the story is coming back to my memory. I had a conversation about him with a friend of mine that knew him, that was friends with him.
Yep.
Okay. And I was interested in the topic of microfinance, so we were talking about it. It says that, yes, I know this guy, David Pusal, he did this, and that. And they say, yeah, wow, how was his experience? He says, you know what, there's one thing that troubled him in the whole microfinance scheme. And he says, you know what, the thing that troubled him the most is that he said that, he was helping to save people from poverty, but he couldn't bear the idea that he was not necessarily helping people to they're not in poverty anymore, but he was concerned, and he was really if they were actually being saved.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
because he said, look, what is the point of me saving someone from poverty if they're still going on a highway to hell?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
And that was something that really troubled him. And what do you think about that? Do you think that he was being too harsh on himself? Do you think that taking people out of poverty was perhaps a noble goal on its own? Where do you think that concern of his would be coming from? Yeah,
so I see that there is a trend or a temptation maybe in the development world to see lifting people out of poverty as an end in itself, and that certainly is a great thing to help contribute to ending poverty and getting people to be able to improve their own livelihoods in a sustainable way. They are great goals, but is it a complete fulfillment of the gospel commission, for instance? And there is a little bit of confusion sometimes. Sometimes people doing development work see that they are fulfilling the call of Jesus and the pattern that Jesus gave, because he did do a lot of development work, health and well-being work with the people that he was working with. But he also called people to follow me. Like there was a complete ministry involved in the work of Jesus, and I think that's what people like David Busau are sensing. And that tension is there because there's a secular version of development work and humanitarian work that leaves God right out of the picture and paints sharing the gospel as a coercive, self-interested add-on, and it's more pure if you don't share the gospel because then you're not attaching strings. So there's this version out there that's based on a secular mindset that that somehow Christianity is coercive and selfish and corrupt and whatever. And if that worldview was actually true, then you can kind of understand why that mentality exists, why that narrative exists. But yes, in development work,
Yeah, that is very interesting.
There is a great opportunity, though, and David Bissau and his life illustrated this to bring the gospel in what as an objective in what he was doing. And look, nobody gets it perfect. Nobody is Jesus in doing ministry. The perfect balance of helping people's physical needs and their spiritual needs, and getting the timing right, and and not doing it with selfish motivations. Like all of us, none of us can do it in the way that Jesus did it. But I think the pattern is there to do both. Like why just help people spiritually when you can help them physically? Why just help people physically when you can help? Let's do both.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's something that David Bissau actually gave as a speech when he was given an Australia Day honour, and he was given the opportunity to address Australia live on the Australia Day awards. He in his speech he challenged Australians to think about who we are as a nation, to assess our place in the world, and most important, to consider how they could be making a difference in that place. And this is the conclusion of his speech. He says, there is a part of us that is designed to help others find that part. Create some space for it in your life. It's probably not going to be your whole life, but I guarantee when you get to the end of your story, you'll be glad you did. And he also said this in his speech, creative small business people are the powerhouse of all communities, and more so in developing countries. The challenge is to release the incredible potential in human beings to enable them to express their creativity and drive.
Wow.
And that's kind of what he did for his life. He was an entrepreneur. He saw opportunities, and he helped people make the most of it through just small amounts of finance. And in a sustainable way. Like, it wasn't just giving charity, giving aid, give your donation, then leave. Like, it was setting people up for success long term, but also with the gospel, as a key motivator and driver and outcome of his work and ministry.
That's amazing. What an amazing story. Very encouraging, and when I think about David's story and even his heart aching for the preaching of the gospel, it reminds me a little bit of Oskar Schindler. When he was this famous German entrepreneur, industrialist who helped save hundreds, if not thousands, of Jews from the Holocaust by smuggling them out of the country. And at the very end of his life, he was crying and desperate because he was looking at still the possessions that he had. He was looking at his watches and saying, "Look, this watch could have smuggled 2 people out of the country."
Right.
He was kind of praying to God, just can you please give me one more.
Yes.
And even though he had saved hundreds, he said, look, there's none of my possessions mean anything compared to being able to save a human life.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
We're now going to get the answer to the previous quiz question by producer Sandy.
When referring to evil teachings like that of Hymenaeus and Philetus, Paul said it spreads like a gangrene or a cancer, a canker. There's all kinds of really powerful words to describe that. That picture.
Some strong words there. I said either wildfire or cancer, but it was the cancer. What did you say? What did you respond? Fire. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much,
Still
producer
fast,
Sandy.
spreading and devastating.
Yeah. You got the picture. Yeah.
Absolutely.
This is what happens when we don't address false teachings that are going around, doing the rounds in Christian communities. They need to be addressed. Okay, then I want to talk to you about defamation. If you get defamed in national TV, should you sue whoever is defaming you?
That defamation is like a false doctrine and a canker and a cancer, isn't it?
It is, but let me tell you this. I believe...
should we sue?
Yeah.
Well, hey, I think that's a good question. I think there's probably places for doing that, but I would say that as a society, we do it way too often.
Yeah, I would say no.
You never do it?
Never do it. And I'll explain to you why I think that, okay? So let's get back into a little bit of the history here. We have been seeing in Australia in the past few years a number of really high profile cases of defamation. So and we're talking about Bruce Lurman and Brittany Higgins. In that one, it backfired spectacularly because Bruce Lurman was accusing Brittany Higgins of defamation. And when they brought the matter to the court found that in terms of probabilities, it was very likely that Mr. Lurman had on the balance of probabilities. He had committed rape against Brittany Higgins. Then we had around the same story, Senator Lisa Reynolds suing Brittany Higgins for defamation as well. Now, Senator Reynolds won the case. However, she lost hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars in the process.
And she lost her credibility as well. Like,
yeah, the damage was already done.
Yeah.
And then we also have now the most famous of all cases is the Ben Roberts Smith defamation case.
Right.
So Ben Roberts Smith, or BRS, how some people call it, was the most living condecorated Australian soldier. He had a Victoria Cross. He was in the Special Forces unit. You know, he was a war hero in Afghanistan. But then there was a reporter that was getting some stories about him, and he basically was accusing him of being a murderer or accusing him of being a war criminal, of having killed at least 3 men in Afghanistan that were unarmed.
Mm-hmm.
They were in a position that, according to international law, they should not be mistreated or even killed. So there's this one of the stories that he would have allegedly kicked a man out of a cliff, into his death. And as a result, Ben Robert Smith, sued then Channel 9 for defamation. But then in that massive lawsuit that is really spent like millions, like over like tens and twenties of millions of dollars in terms of legal fees, Ben Robert Smith was actually found that, again, on the balance of probabilities, because this was not a criminal case, it was a civil case.
Yeah.
That he was, the judge found that he was guilty of these war
more likely to
crimes.
Yes, more likely to have done it than not. Yes.
So, in other words, it was not defamation because he did something, and then the journalists exposed that.
Yeah.
So that case, every now and again, there's something new that happens to it. And just this week, there's a big news that came out from that case. There is a person, one of the witnesses in that case, identified as person 17, who happened to be an ex-lover / mistress of Ben Roberts Smith. Mm-hmm. It came to light that she received a hush payout money of $700,000 by Channel 9.
From
Channel 9.
Channel 9.
From 9.
Yes. Okay.
And the context here is that she was being interviewed by this reporter who was, like a senior reporter by 9 News. His name's Nick McKenzie. And one of the things that she told Nick McKenzie, because she had recorded her telephone interviews with him, and she was basically accusing 9. I think she had like a bit of a regret for oversharing things and sharing things that she shouldn't with Nick McKenzie. I'll tell you exactly what she shared, but Nick McKenzie was kind of pointed as, hey, maybe he's being forceful, maybe he was being a little bit obnoxious and a bit coercive to a certain extent. So she had a complaint against him, but part of the secrets that she shared with Ben with Nick McKenzie is that she had access to the legal defense strategy of Ben Robert Smith, and she shared that with Nick McKenzie 8 days prior to the court hearings. So in this lawyer and court cases world, this is like top secret protected information. You don't want your enemy at court, to your opponent, to know what is going to be your defense strategy. And she had access to that. She leaked it, and now it came to public that she received a payout of $700,000 because basically Channel 9 said, look, okay, you didn't like it, but look, don't go to public with it. Don't tell anyone that you gave that information to our journalist or that our journalist did this, and this to you. And in exchange for your silence, we're going to be paying you $700,000. To which she said, okay. She said, yes. But now she came back in public anyway. One thing that I find it fascinating and very curious is that how many times in this we hear about hush money situations. Now, there's a famous one with President Donald up in the United States, where he would have given hush money to someone. But it looks like when these big corporations, big media, they pay someone hush money to not say something. It turns out that they get the money and then people will say it anyway.
Yeah, right.
Down the track.
Yeah.
Well, but that's beside the case, because there was a really interesting interview in the Australian podcast this week with another journalist. He was just covering that case. He was explaining what is happening. And the interviewer, I think it was Claire Harvey, she was asking, hey, you being a journalist, you've been covering these, defamation cases like all your life. What is your advice, like practical advice? Like, should people sue? Like, if, even if the media comes to you and they're defaming you, should you sue them for defamation? And his response was something that really got, me thinking. It really got the hamster wheel turning in my head here. And he says, looking at the history, there's a very high chance that you're going to lose the defamation case. And even when you win the defamation case, you ended up going backwards in hundreds of thousands of dollars. So is it worth it?
And you usually, in all these cases, you're usually not achieving the objective of improving your reputation.
The story is already out there. And he said in Ben Robert Smith's case, it was very likely that if he'd never really pursued that case, things would be better for him. Because not only he would have, saved millions and millions of dollars, not to mention the time in court. He said, look, when you are out there in the war, people give you the benefit of the doubt. If you're a war hero, people will give you the benefit of the doubt, because it is very hard to know, sometimes people say, oh, they're unarmed people. Like, how do you know if they are unarmed really, if they were not like, terrorist fighters that they have been captured? And so things happen in war, and they're all not, they're not beautiful, they're ugly, but at the same time kind of give young Australians that are giving their lives to fight for their country, foreign, overseas, like you kind of give them the benefit of the doubt. So I think that at least in the mind of the public, it would have been better if he just
so this is where I would probably come back and say that there is room for some defamation law, at least, and maybe some pursuit of that, and this is the way I would frame it. If there was no possibility for consequences for defamation, then people would defame without with impunity. So it's helpful to have the legislation in place, absolutely, and for sometimes that consequence to come. Where I think we would both agree, many, I'm sure many of our listeners would also resonate, is that when I am going in to sue for defamation, it's going to backfire for me. So it's usually not a good place to sue to defend yourself. But if you're defending somebody else, or if I don't even know.
So if you're a lawyer and you're cashing in, just go for it.
I don't know if the legislation is set up to allow for this, but if somebody is defending somebody else for defamation, then that
if you're being a witness and participating, I agree.
So
in that sense, yes. But I'll tell you what, why I resonated with that counsel, with that advice from the journalist saying, hey, you know what, it's better just leave it.
Yeah.
I think that Jesus said something similar to that.
Yeah, right.
And I'm reading here from Matthew chapter 5, verse 4. Jesus says, blessed are you when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. In other words, when people defame you.
Yes, exactly.
Just say, look, you know what? Blessed are you. Count yourself as really lucky, as being blessed by God. And Jesus said this, rejoice and be glad, for your reward in heaven is great. Yeah. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Yeah. Now, Jesus is not talking about you being defamed because you've done something wrong. It's like if people are accusing you of false things, but all that you have been doing is just preaching the gospel and trying to save people for eternity, you know what? When that happens, actually count that as a bonus for your spiritual career. Count that as an amazing blessing.
And I think we can see that in his life. He didn't defend himself when he was defamed at his trial, but he did come in to defend John the Baptist. So this kind of goes to what I was saying before. When you're defending somebody else against defamation, then it's healthy.
If you're giving witness to defend someone, absolutely.
If you're defending yourself, no.
If someone is defaming you and you decide to go to court, then and you need a witness to say, no, look, Dan is a good guy. Like I can be there for you. But if it's me, say, you know what, let them speak evil of me. You know what, my reward in heaven is is way better than that. This happened with Jesus. I'm in good company.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
And we have a very special guest here today. She came into the studio to share some testimonies, sometimes that she saw God doing some incredible, amazing things in her life. And I have Sophia James with me. Sophia, good morning to you. Thank you so much for coming to the Breakfast Show and sharing some of your stories with Jesus.
Morning. I'm glad to be here.
Sophia, let's start by first, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? How old are you? What are you doing currently? Let's start with that.
Cool. Well, I grew up, I'm a Queenslander by birth, so from Russell Island near Brisbane. But yeah, I am now currently working at the conference, kind of fresh there a little bit.
All right. So at the office of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in New South Wales. Okay. So what are you doing there?
I'm taking over Shanna as the new youth department assistant. So yeah.
Okay. So youth department assistant. That's very cool. So for the listeners that may not know so much, but the administration of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Australia, they have a youth department. With they're basically organizing events and programs for young people, and Sophia will be helping out in that space. So how old are you, Sophia, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 19.
You're 19, okay, very young. And tell us a little bit about, your faith journey. Did you grow up as a Christian, or did you come to become a believer like later in life? How did that work for you?
Yeah, so I did grow up in a Christian household. My parents are Seventh-day Adventists, and yeah, my dad grew up in the church. My mom didn't, but came to the church when she met Dad. Mm-hmm. And yeah, when we lived on Russell Island, my parents planted a church, so it was pretty I got to see the behind the scenes of how the effort that goes into.
Nice.
So yeah, that was really cool actually.
Very cool. Look, church planting, they say, is the extreme sports of Christian life. So I'm a big fan in particular. So I've been involved with a couple of church plants as well myself, and it's really cool. So you grew up in this Christian home. So did you find that at some point in your life you had to kind of make a decision to know, okay, this is my faith, I'm owning it, versus it was just like what my parents told me? When did it become real for you? When did it become like your own personal conviction? Can you tell us a little bit about the process of that happening?
Yeah, so it is a big step. I know it can be hard for kids who've grown up in the church to actually try and take that step rather than kind of just being their parents' faith, because that's something that I struggled with a lot growing up, about when to kind of make that switch, because you can just go about your life just kind of going about the motions, but it's when you actually take it on for yourself, that's when it actually begins. So yeah, a pretty big moment that I remember was at a Pathfinder camporee in Tumbarumba.
So explain to us, what is Pathfinders?
Yes. So Pathfinders is basically like scouts for the church. So you kind of go outside and go camping and have hall nights and hall meetings and stuff. So you can earn honours that go on a sash, and yeah. So it's cool. Really outdoorsy. It's super fun. I love it. But yeah, so my dad was the director for a couple of years of the Mooloolah Bar Club, so my home club. And yeah, it was the Pathfinder camporee at the start of 2023.
So camporee is like a big, massive camp event?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was the Australia-wide one. So I think there was like 4,000 or 5,000 people there. So it was busy.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome. I loved it. And yeah, so I think it was the last night, but I'd been praying for some time because I grew up traveling, so for about 7 years. So I tripped around a lot, and it was like my life.
Around Australia or the world?
Yeah, around Australia. Yeah. So my dad fitted out a bus and everything, so it was a pretty cool upbringing. But yeah, so from that, I love traveling and being outside and everything. And I'd kind of been feeling a bit stuck. So then when I got to camporee and it was the last night, I realized, I'd been praying for some time for just kind of a way to kind of, not an escape, but just like a way to kind of reconnect with like that sense of freedom that I once had.
Okay.
And it was on the very last night of camporee that it kind of just hit me like a truck. I was like, this is it. This is what I've been looking for and what I've been praying for all this time. And it's been right in front of me this whole time. And that kind of kick-started my walk with God. Our church.
So what was the answer to your prayer exactly? Because you're praying to God, say, God, I wanted to experience that freedom again. So what was it that was in front of you? Was the fact that you were in the camporee that says, hey, this is the freedom that you're looking for? Or was it something else?
Yeah. I think it was the camporee. It was just like Pathfinders, because it kind of gave me the freedom to go outside and actually reconnect with nature like I once had.
Yes. So kind of like God saying, hey, if you want freedom, you're welcome to come and be in my nature anytime you want.
Exactly. And
you
with
have the
church too.
skills.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you get to spend time with all of the other youth from church as well. Which
Yes.
it's an extrovert's paradise. So I
Amazing.
love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so no, that was actually awesome. And it coincided, well, not coincided, it was definitely divinely coordinated with a Bible reading plan that our church pastors did at the time. It was reading through a Bible in a year. So I've never actually really been able to stick that well to Bible reading plans, but I did that year. And it was, I think that year was the first year that I'd actually taken my walk with God seriously. And it was actually incredible. I had this one spot on my front deck that I could sit there and watch the sunrise, and I was going through this reading plan, and like it was kind of slow in a few places, but like it was good to have like an overview, a picture of the whole Bible.
Yes, nice. So you read the whole Bible in that 1 year.
Yeah,
amazing.
So yeah, it was really cool actually. So first time I've ever done that, and yeah, won't be the last.
And can you tell me about a couple of times some of the experiences that you look back? You're only 19, but you have so much experience in your faith, which is, I think, it's really cool. Can you share with me some other cases where you find that either God was speaking to you or that God was answering your prayers, that you could see like, oh, wow, this is amazing. I can see like God's doing so clearly in my life. What experiences would you like to share that really that you really treasure in your heart?
Yeah, well, one that kind of comes to mind is at the end of 2023, I did a Youth Rush program in Toowoomba, so South Queensland.
Okay, what is the Youth Rush?
So Youth Rush is like literature evangelism. So you go around, you have like a bag of books and a handful of books, and you go around door knocking, basically selling the books for donations.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I did that with a couple of my friends up in Toowoomba in South Queensland towards the end of 2023. And I was only there for 2 weeks of the 4-week program, but it was an awesome experience. Like, it definitely pushed me out of my comfort zone.
Yes, I mean, I only tried doing this door-to-door selling books kind of thing once. I was terrible at it, but you know what? I loved it. It was very character building, and you ended up meeting with some really interesting people.
Yes, you really do. Yeah, it's not everyone's cup of tea. It probably wasn't my cup of tea at the start, but then you kind of just push yourself, and it's cool to see how God can work. Like,
did you have any meetings, any encounters, or anything that happened during that time that you were doing this door-to-door book selling work? Was any experience, any memory that stands out to you from that period?
Yeah, I think that's the last week. It was towards the end. I kind of been like building my confidence over the couple of weeks there, and yeah, it was really cool. I've been praying for some divine appointments. I didn't get anything like crazy big, but there was this one moment. I think it was towards the end of the last week, but I knocked on the door, and then I went through my canvas, and there was this dad there and a couple of kids that were kind of just like standing around, and I went through the canvas, and they didn't really seem that interested. Then I got down to the drop down, which is a little Steps to Christ. And I
sorry, what is that?
A drop down, a Steps to Christ. So
yeah, what is a
like,
drop down?
So you have like a handful of books that you kind of go through. A canvas is like a speech kind of thing, just like a little.
Okay, like a sales speech.
Yeah, pretty much. And so the drop down is, if they're not really interested in any of those books, it's sort of like a smaller book that's not as daunting as like one of the big books.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a little Steps to Christ, and I went to that one, and I was like, well, if you guys would be interested in this one.
Yeah, in Steps to Christ is a book actually that we give away here on Faith FM as well for our listeners. If you're interested in Steps to Christ, well, give me a quick before you continue that conversation. What would be your canvas for that book, Steps to Christ? Why should anybody read it?
It's a great book. Kind of put me on the spot there. But I don't know. It's just like, it's a really simple and easy to read overview of basically how to get to Christ, and the beauty of it, and how it's not such like a big decision and a big it's not a big daunting like, oh, you have to be like ready, and you have to say all the right things and do all the right things and be the right kind of person. It's just how to get from where you are to closer with God.
Amazing. By the way, if you want that book, Radio Friend, we have a couple of copies we can send out to you. So 0491 064 669 #steps is the code word for that one. So, okay, so you are in this business, and, they're not interested in what you have to sell. And you say, okay, let me just offer Steps to Christ, because it's a tiny little book. Were you selling that book as well, or was it free?
Yeah, it was. Well, you can hand it out for free, but it means more if people give a donation.
Give a donation, like, what, $1, $2, something like that.
Yeah.
So you're talking to them about that book, and then what happened?
And then one of the little girls, one of his kids that were there, I think she must have been like 4 or 5 or something, and she was there, and I saw her eyes just light up when I kind of handed out the book. I didn't know their background or anything like that. And she was like, oh, I have some money. And then she ran off and then came back with $5 out of her own piggy bank. So for like a little, like 4 or 5 year old, that's a lot.
That's amazing.
And
yes.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, absolutely just beaming. It was such a God moment. And
wow.
then she came back and was like, oh, here you go. And so I gave her the book. And
God bless her.
Because of that little girl, like her parents may not have been interested, but because of that girl, the gospel got into their house.
Wow. That is amazing.
It was awesome.
It is amazing. It reminds me of, with the story of in the Bible of, the widow of 2 mites. She was given like just $2, 2 mites, two tiny coins. And Jesus was like, wow, like she has given more than anybody else here.
Yeah.
She has given out of her poverty, she gave everything that she had. Just like that little girl. It's amazing to see the faith in kids.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah, what a great story. That would be very heartwarming. Tell us a little bit about this school you're telling me about. You went to this school where they teach you how to share Jesus with other people called Arise. Can you tell us a little bit about that and any experiences, any memories that you have there that you treasure with you?
Yeah. So Arise is a 13-week Bible program. So it's a deep dive into the Bible. Like you learn about the Bible from start to finish, but like super in depth. And you get awesome speakers. So you get like David Asherick, Ty Gibson, Angelo Grasso, Robbie Morgan at Kingscliff Church. So it's based at Kingscliff Church in New South Wales. And it was an awesome experience. So my class was about 30, so kind of a bit on the smaller side, but perfect size, so we all got to know each other really well. And it was 13 weeks of just learning heaps about the Bible and getting closer with each other as well. So,
but I'm an ex-student at that school as well. I graduated in the class of 2015, so 11 years ago. Don't ask my age, but you can ask. But you're definitely the new generation there. But one of the things that we used to do there is that every a couple of times per week we would go out in the afternoon, just like knock on people's doors and ask, hey, would you like to know more about Jesus? Would you like to know about the Bible? Which was a pretty daunting experience because a lot of people just said, nah, I'm not interested, boom, and just like slammed the door shut in your face. Did you have any cool stories? Do you still do that in that school? And you have any interesting stories that you can share from your experience with canvassing, but this time to present the gospel to people?
I didn't have any like negative experiences like that. But me and my outreach partner, we had a pretty smooth run actually. We didn't have too many people that we found that were super interested. We had a few good like spiritual conversations on the doors, but not too many kind of big experiences. We had more of like more experiences in Arise for Life, the program after Arise.
Okay. Well, can you share with me what happened there? So, one of these experiences that you really you love to share with us today.
Yeah, so Arise for Life is the follow-up program from Arise. So Arise goes for 3 months, or 13 weeks, and Arise for Life is a follow-up 6-month program where you can basically put all the information you learn in Arise into practice. And so you get placed with either one or a couple others that did Arise at a specific church in the North New South Wales region. And so me and one of my best friends, Macy, from America, she and me got place at Olsenville Church, and it was actually like awesome. We had our pastor was Pastor Dada, so he was like a pretty like
shout out Pastor Dada.
Oh yes,
my good friend.
Do you know him?
Yes.
Oh, awesome guy, crazy Brazilian. We love him. And so we got placed there, and it was absolute chaos, but in the best way possible. I mean, that's what ministry is sometimes. You just dive all in, and then it's awesome. So we did heaps of like small groups, and basically we're just Bible workers for Olsenville.
We have about a minute left in that segment. But what I wanted to ask you is like during that time, the 6 months that you were there, is that any kind of encounter, any moment that is like, oh wow, look at what God is doing?
Yeah. So our focus when we were there was the youth, the kids of that church, and we ran heaps of small groups there, and in the junior small group, I think it was on like the last weekend.
Small Bible study group.
Yeah. And one of the last weekends that we were there, there was 4 of the kids there that we did Bible studies with that got baptized, which was awesome to see. And it was
amazing.
it was a really fitting like close to our time there, and it was cool to see that like yeah, God was working in all of their lives, and they all decided to make that choice for God, and we could be like play a little part in that.
Yeah, look, you know what? I absolutely love sharing the Word of God with children. I just love to see how their brain works. It is amazing. Sometimes children's brains operate in a better logic than us adults. You know, because they don't have all these prejudices that we have and all of these, so they say, look, if God said this, well, let's just do it. What's stopping us? And I really love to see that faith, because for us as adults, oh no, but what if God doesn't come through? Or what if this? Or what are other people going to think of me? With children, they say, look, no, if Jesus wants me to do this, I'll do it. And when can I start? And I love it because this is what Jesus says. Look, unless you become like these little children, you won't be able to come to the kingdom of heaven. Like, you really have to have this like implicit trust in God and this childlike faith. And I really love sharing the gospel with, young people, because I get reminded every time. It's like, wow, this is like what beautiful, pure, and undefiled faith looks like. It's just like, if God says it, He says it. It's true. Well, let's go and do it.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Sophia, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I hope that I can find more and more young people like you that are on fire for God, that are having that experience and really dedicating your time to help others get to know Jesus more. Thank you so much for coming, and looking forward to have you again next time so that you can share even more stories with us.
Thanks for being a part of the Faith FM family. Join our community on Facebook or get in touch at 1-800-FAITH-FM.